Hello everyone, and welcome to another webinar in our technology briefing series today, where we feature the latest innovations in the field of data quality, MDM and data governance. Today we're joined by Gary Stalker, VP of Technical Services over at Visionware, who will be discussing how to navigate the MDM journey to customer centricity in the insurance sector. Gary heads up the consulting and implementation team at Visionware and has been implementing enterprise solutions in financial services over a number of years, including companies such as Aviva, NFU Mutual, ARAG in Germany, and National Australia Bank as well. So over to you, Gary.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks very much for joining me. Today I'm going to take you through a journey on how an MDM initiative can help your organization create a more customer-centric view. Hopefully you'll get to see some outcomes here which will help you identify how you can increase efficiency and profitability within the organization. And I'm going to show you 10 steps that you should take to try and get there, and 10 key outcomes you should hope to achieve and that MDM can enable you. Okay. Every journey has a starting point. So the starting point here is to envisage this goal of the single customer view across the organization. Now, this is not a new goal for many insurers, but it's a journey which has typically been challenging over the years, mainly because in your marketplace it's been very policy centric. There's been lots of custom built applications, and typically the insurance industry itself is very siloed in nature, which leads to political challenges within the organization trying to get things like data sharing agreements set up. Sometimes they've been technology led, and the business process may not necessarily change at the same speed as the technology processes can change. We also know that the landscape has changed considerably in the last 5 to 6 years. If we look at the fact that customers are now more demanding, that expectations are changing, the price comparison makes it far easier to compare what services and costs you offer compared to your competitors, and therefore we're really looking to try and differentiate the service that we offer through the quality that we have in place. Equally, I would also say that MDM vendors have not been particularly that helpful in this journey in the past. There's been lots of jargon associated with our industry, which adds complexity to an already complex challenge. And suddenly it can appear to be a huge problem with a huge cost to fix. So what I'll try and do now is take you through, identify these 10 steps to get to that customer-centric, data-driven approach, which will allow your organization to build a single customer view and have a far more predictable return on investment. The next slide is probably step one, trying to understand why customer centricity is important. These figures that you see here are from an independent report done by Ernst & Young, and it was covering the consumer market sentiment towards in the insurance industry. So there's really 3 issues which come out from some of these statistics here, and which basically link the opportunity for a single customer view to the insurance industry. First of all, loyalty, understanding who your most valuable customers are. So if we look there at the top left-hand corner, 42% of insurance, 42% of consumers don't necessarily see that they are being rewarded for their loyalty. In the top right-hand corner there, that same pointed to retention. So the customers also believe that there's no real effort being made to try to convince them to stay. And we obviously know how much easier it is now to swap products, to swap brands, and most consumers believing there's been no great effort invested in terms of convincing them to stay with their existing supplier. So what you'll then hopefully find is that using a single customer view will allow us to identify who those most valuable customers are. And equally, if you look at in the bottom there, we'll see that 11% of consumers, only 11% of customers bought more than one product from the same insurer, but equally 49% of consumers are saying they would like to buy more. So the harsh reality there is you've almost got 1/3 of your customers who want more products from you. So those are people that you don't need to go and try and find, and they're already using your products. So you're trying to find the most appropriate products there to get them to engage with. Now, whether that's cross-selling and upselling, but really this is telling you that there's an opportunity there being missed from this, or that's what this independent report is telling us. So the single customer view will identify who to target and give us a better chance of success, and why the customer centricity is important, and obviously the consumers are effectively saying why they want it. The next step is trying to identify what that end goal is going to be for us to become much more data driven. I'm not going to go through all of these particular examples here, but if we looked at some of them, you take the one there, the seamless experience at the point of contact. Now that can be customer coming through to a call center, but really what we're trying to do is enable the person who's handling that call to provide them with as much information as possible, not being held hostage to poor data quality, data which is missing, which therefore would prohibit any engagement being handled in the most efficient and effective manner. In the top right hand side, we touched on earlier, identifying the ability to cross-sell or upsell by getting the entire view. And crucially, what we've seen in the past, especially with insurers who run multiple brands, and when we've become engaged, we've identified areas where they are actively spending money trying to steal customers from themselves. So brand A is actually, unconsciously targeting brand B's customers, and sometimes the customer is entirely unaware that they both belong to the same overall umbrella organization. So a lot of money potentially being wasted there on spending money to steal customers from yourself. If we take another example there, reduction in the regulatory risk. Obviously knowing your customers is key, so the more information now that you can try and put together or pull together into the one place is certainly going to enable you to better combat any regulation requirements that are imposed upon you, and reduce any risk. And equally that would also fit into treating people fairly. Because you'll be in far greater possession of the information that you have. Enabled self-service channels, again, also quite important. If you're bringing people, trying to shift the channels where you engage with them, bringing them into, let's say, a self-service portal, but ensuring they have the ability to see all of their policies, if you like, within the one portal, and they're not necessarily fragmented because you've grown through a fragmented policy administration system. So joining them up so that they can see everything that they need to see at that single point. Okay, so these are all, if you like, outcomes for a real data-driven approach and customer-centric approach that in terms of trying to move that forward. Okay. Step 3 is trying to understand how master data management is really important to your internal customers. I'm not going to go through all of these individually, but the number one need, if you like, and this is just across most projects, but we find this particularly with MDM is achieving that business buy-in. There's a cross-section of the departments there, identifying their own individual motives and benefits for leveraging a single customer view, from the cross-sell and upsell opportunities that we've talked about in the past there with regards to marketing, to that much more seamless engagement from a customer service perspective. Equally, from a technical from a technical or IT or infrastructure point of view, we really want to try and have the existing technology, reducing the complexity. There's lots and lots of systems out there. Everything becomes may very well be very fragmented due to the strategic approach in the past. That could have been through mergers and acquisitions or particular growth strategies. So you end up with a very complex environment, and therefore trying to bring all that together to make that slightly less complex. And equally as well from a sales perspective, trying to get you the correct level of insight into each of those customers, and offering the most appropriate the most appropriate products and services. And you'll see there the quote from Gartner at the base of the slide there. essentially saying, okay, trying to start small, grow up extend that single customer view by adding in systems on an iterative process, and that's when you really start to see how master data really begins to improve those business objectives and outcomes. Understanding your known unknowns. These questions here are normally the reasons why we may have financial services or insurance customers arriving at our door in the first place. So in most cases, unsure of how many unique customers that they have, unsure of what the typical policy count per customer is across the business lines, actually quite shocked when we find out the truth and present that back to them, where they've actually been basing business decisions on numbers which are which are out by a factor, and in some cases quite wildly out, but it taught them a huge amount about their underlying customer base and the number of policies that they're selling to each individual customers. So identifying where those cross-selling opportunities begin, and equally, even at the simplest level, from a householding perspective, so we can pinpoint and surface up where you have very much got householding potential there. So you could be different individuals within the same household holding multiple policies, and that comes on to, obviously, to multi-policy discount. And we've certainly got some customers as well who are quite keen on the fact that they might not necessarily be offering multi-policy discount because they're selling to these particular households under different brands. But I can imagine that's potentially only a matter of time before that customer realizes that they should be entitled to some form of discount. So if these questions, if you like, resonate with you, and you don't have the answer to these, then again, that single customer view should be able to start to provide some of the answers to them. Okay, and at the end point, you should be able to answer every one of these questions. Another one, again, which I'll touch on just briefly, why we may get an approach is, even in if your organization is growing through acquisition, sometimes we'll get approached to say, okay, we're potentially thinking of purchasing this other competitor, and we need to know how many net new customers are we going to get. So there's our customer list, there's potentially their customer list if we're in a due diligence situation, and we would then come up with, okay, these are your net news, these are areas where you're going to be much stronger in, this is areas where your existing, the prospective takeover target are much stronger in, and this might be a particular geographical location where you would consider consolidating. So another reason why people would come on board. Trying to learn from where successes have happened in the past. I won't touch too much on this. A couple of examples here from financial services. Towergate really trying to change entirely from a very business and strategic initiative to move toward a much more customer-centric approach. Again, you can see there they've grown up through multiple acquisitions over a number of years, very fragmented infrastructure and policy admin systems, and therefore coming together to try and join everything up to a new, if you like, customer engagement model, new CRM solutions, etc. Therefore, a single customer view, very, very key to enable that shift to happen. If we take someone like Dollar Financial is a $3 billion organization in multiple countries across the world. Again, that's another example of where someone's coming to us in an M&A environment, trying to identify the value of acquisitions, trying to use that to drive down, and in this case, potentially being able to negotiate millions of dollars from a particular acquisition because of identify who those overlapping customers are, and give their board a much better idea of what they would in essence be buying. Okay. One of the key things is, again, if we take nothing else away from this next slide, which is step 6, is recognizing it's time to move. And when we get involved with some of our customers and also with their individual business colleagues, what you tend to find is, although the business may be siloed in its approach, everyone kind of has this underlying appreciation that it's time to move. So hopefully we can then start to show us that by IT understanding that the business and leading them forward, or more from an infrastructure perspective, leading them forward into some new initiatives that can improve that data quality and therefore the outcomes. So identifying the time to move, and as well as the business understands that those silos that they have, and the understanding maybe they're in the silos, but trying to raise that up to an overall corporate level, and then that's when you're starting to see the data there as a corporate-wide asset, and therefore being able to move that data into a much more strategic direction away from the siloed position that you typically find yourselves in at the moment. The next slide, probably more about understanding MDM technology. Now, I suppose that the key thing here, that this doesn't really matter which, if you like, I obviously work for an MDM vendor, but these are things that you'll need to consider regardless of which vendor you would in essence want to choose. So considerations you want to make. One of the, if I take a few bits and pieces from this, the deployment options, obviously, a mixture of it. It could be you may want cloud deployment, you may want on-premise, you may want a hybrid solution. How does that best fit with your business strategy? One of the things that I got in there is thinking past the upfront cost of the software. I think that's quite important. You probably in first day at consultancy school they teach you that bespoke equals more expensive, more money to be driven from the customer. I would probably try and guard against that. I think you should be able to drive as much as you can from a non-bespoke solution. Most of the challenges that you have trying to generate a single customer view will be faced by almost all insurers, all financial services organizations, and as much as all our customers are very special, most of the challenges that they face are very, very similar, and that's across, obviously, across the industry. So in that instance, you probably don't want to be beholden to lots and lots of services times, much as I would love to sell lots and lots of services, but you're really looking to try and get an identification as to what the ongoing cost would be. So as you expand, as you bring on potentially either new products to the marketplace or new solutions, or purchase competitors, how can you then very quickly consume those into your existing MDM solution without having to undertake a huge amount of work? Okay, so those two parts there on the right-hand side, thinking past the upfront cost of the software and looking at quite a transparent and predictable pricing, so that you know that, okay, in order for me to bring on another system, it's going to cost me X number of pounds or dollars for that to bring that system in, and Y number of days for the services, and that should be reasonably predictable. Okay, obviously you want to try and get someone who understands the your industry, the challenges that are faced there, the particular governance and compliance requirements that you have, and equally can also come with you to talk to your business users and provide some confidence that that's all been that everything's been delivered, and you have got a vendor who understands that marketplace. Okay. The next one, I'll probably skip over this. I don't necessarily work in the sales team, but I'll tell you a very brief bit about us. We're a private organisation, been on the go now for 21 years, just about the same age as myself, based in the UK and the US. Yeah, we've been leading the way in MDM for a long time, and a lot of people now jumping on the bandwagon. I think the last time we looked, there's probably about 40 to 50 separate MDM vendors out there. If you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, they'll narrow that down to like top 10. So we've been on that Magic Quadrant now for the last 6 years. We're quite a Microsoft centric approach in terms of keep our the general overall cost model of our solution down, and very transparent pricing, as I was referring to previously. So I'll move on past that. I'm sure there's lots more information you can glean from us from our website if you'd like to. The products that we sell is our View 360 platform. I'll just kind of go around this wheel very quickly. In the top left-hand corner at 10 o'clock there, Multiview is the main product, which has been used to master data, so do the matching of records between your customer base, identifying which ones are the same, doing the merging. On the right-hand side there at the 1 o'clock is Verus, which is verifying data potentially against an external reference data set. Could be post office address file, just to give you an example, so cleaning up your data as well. Chroma at the 3 o'clock there, looking to how we would then push, once we've joined all the data together, how we could then push those changes within the data to the various owners, if you like, within the system. So as you may be notifying a person on system A that you've changed an address, and by the power of everything being linked up, that can then be notified on to someone who owns system C to say, yep, we've got a change of address coming through there, or that can all be automated as well. Prism, you'll see a very quick screenshot of the end, is the ability to visualize and explore through the data as well. And Oris is an integration to CRM solutions. So even if you were bringing on a new CRM solution and you've got this fragmented infrastructure where you've got customer details on all the solutions, maybe ahead of actually bringing all them into the CRM solution, this allows you to search across your infrastructure and find your customers and almost, if you like, register them real time, and bring the details from one of those source systems, bring it up through and into your CRM solution and populate it, so the customer therefore doesn't necessarily have to provide you or re-provide you with all that ongoing information. So the final part there, understanding what MDM can enable, and having done a number of these projects in the past, and the reason we've got this kind of icon here or visualization is really the kind of seeing is believing, and I've sat in many situations where, regardless how long the project takes and whether that's been in an amount of time, whether it could have been through planning and RFP and project initiation and gathering the data and getting the data, it's really not until we actually present the data back to the business that they set forward in their seat. And at that point, the penny always finally drops. The penny drops for them. They therefore understand that the concept of data or this customer information as a corporate asset, but equally, they also then understand the part they have to play, and how if they basically can clean up their particular slice of data and someone else cleans up their slice of data, everyone benefits from that, and that is therefore all joined together. So the organization as a whole starts to benefit from that. And I say it's quite the amount of times where people just say, right, now I get it. I have been involved in this project for X number of months, but now that I see this, I now finally get what we're trying to achieve here. Okay, so those are the steps. I'm just going to go through some of the outcomes that you could see. So what this example here comes from a reasonably a reasonably common example of a customer that we have. It's a financial services organization, is looking at some of a multitude of CRM solutions. OBT is outbound telephony, so outbound calling. They've got business to business, they've got small business as well, trying to sell various products and policies to a number of places. You'll see on the going from top left to bottom right that the red there is identifying duplicates. So duplicates within those systems. So duplicates cost money. To service, they identify a lack of full understanding of what's happening within the customer base, and equally what you'll also see just outside of those is the number of cross matches, so where people exist on more than one system. So if I took there on the second column there, we've got CRM business to business, and what we're saying is we've got 109,000 people who exist on that system who also exist on the outbound telephony system. Now there may be a reason why there's such a high crossover, and if you looked at the corresponding line there just slightly below on the left hand side, it's showing that accounts for 8.78% of the crossover between those systems. Now there may be a reason why there's lots of duplicates within systems. They may not be person-centric, they may be call-centric, they may be policy-centric as well. So again, those are the challenges of moving away from a call or transactional-based system where you could be capturing customers' details on a ongoing basis or it could be a policy-based system, to much more a customer-centric system. And even I've taken one other line out of this. You see on the lowest line there, the cold prospects information. This was just to bring in some sample cold prospect data that they were buying from an external data source. The external provider allowed 100,000 records, and what this allowed them to do is, if we go over there to the if we look in the top right hand corner, we can see that, okay, of that 100,000 records that they bought, they already have 1,931 of those within their outbound telephony system. So that may mean that those people are already customers. So those 1,931 customers, you probably want to approach them in a different way, or you don't want to approach them at all. Because they're already there. And even equally, I suppose slightly more amusingly, if you look in the bottom right hand corner of those 100,000 records, within the cold prospect data, they've actually sent this customer 98 duplicates within there. So there's even duplicates within that data. So this is, again, they were paying for new prospects, so, and this allowed them to identify what percentage of records that they already actually had. Discovering the known unknowns. We generally work with data scientists. We could typically get a data scientist involved to look at your data. This is, again, a very simple example of a reasonably common outcome, taking customer data from particular systems, identifying the top one there, 5,725 duplicates. Mike Unix, you probably will not be surprised to know, is obviously I think he was a developer who had been testing on the production system and had loaded a whole load of records on the production system. So again, starting to skew data, skewing a whole load of KPIs, metrics, etc. So they were spread out all over the place, and we were able to pull them all into one place. So obviously, and the same type thing was happening there with those top two scenarios. Interestingly, if I'm just going to give you the lowest scenario there, the one down at 610, in this particular instance, this was, I think these names are all been obviously anonymized, but in this particular scenario, this individual was actually a broker who was putting their details against customer policy details. So in terms of contact, because they didn't want anyone else contacting the customer, so in terms of the contact details for the policy, they were all going through to this one individual. So again, not necessarily giving you providing a real view of the customer base. So just going to show you a couple of examples here where you can try and identify customers across different lines of business. So we've got an individual who may have a reasonably common name. So in this instance here, we've got Mohammed. We're trying to, you'll see the name which is highlighted in light blue at the top of the form there. So this is what we're trying to match, and you can see potential matches being presented in the lower half of the form there. So we can see across a number of different systems, the sources there have been a number of different systems, different addresses being brought into play. Now, I'm not going to go into how we necessarily do our probabilistic matching and the algorithms and stuff that we use. However, in this instance here, when we're actually joining the two people together, what we can actually see here, we've got two separate systems, two different addresses for this individual. However, what we can identify there is that the same telephony number and contact email addresses are being applied. We can see they've got the same date of birth as well, but maybe something I could have highlighted. You'll see the customer class on the left-hand side is coming from a commercial system, and on the right-hand side it was coming from a retail system for a particular brand. So that's identifying that it is possible to have people who exist on these two separate systems. So that may be another cross-sell or upsell opportunity to identify. You do have a number of these customers, and you would be able to identify how many customers have we got on system A who also exist in system B. What are the typical demographics of those? Are people who are aged 40 to 50, and on system A, are they more likely to buy products from system B as well? So you can start to do all of that type of analysis now that you've joined the information together. Another example here would be creating a broader view of the customer, a reasonably obvious byproduct of this. So we've got the two records here on the left-hand side. We've got Mrs. D. Wainwright, where we are actually seeing that, she's got an email address and she's got a phone number, whereas on the right-hand side we can actually see we've got her full name and we've got date of birth. Obviously, as we join and merge these together, we therefore start to get a much more holistic view of this individual, which would allow us to do some form of personalized marketing. I'm guessing what this would then allow us to do is to send us, by joining these two separate records together, she could now be sent an email which says Dear Davina as opposed to Mrs. D. So Dear Davina, happy birthday, because we've got your email address, we know when it's your birthday because we've joined up all the information which has been available to us within the organization and now bringing them all into one particular area. The final one here is, and this is something which master data management, single customer view, does tend to surface a lot more, and it's the challenge of preference management. Again, what you may find is, in this instance here, we're seeing on the left-hand side the customers telling us when they do and they do not want to be contacted. On the right-hand side, the system that they've got on the right-hand side potentially does not have those fields available. So on the right-hand side, we may just be trying to telephone or email this individual to try and provide them with some information. However, on the left-hand side, they're saying they do not want to be contacted. So it's not until you join the records together you start to get that whole picture. You're also going to run into, again, just consider some of the challenges that you'll have there if you join this person up across 4 systems, and on system 1 he tells you that you can email him, and system 2 he says you can't, and on system 3 he tells you he's quite happy to accept phone calls, and on system 4 he doesn't. Again, it's not until we do this joining of the dots that we start to surface these challenges which actually exist there within the data, but they're just not readily apparent at the moment. And obviously what you're trying to do there is stay compliant, not get people to unsubscribe from mailing lists because they shouldn't have been on them in the first place, generally not getting people to complain, and equally not wanting to send people information that will be of no relevance to them as well. Trying to generate some additional insight at a household level. We talked about that previously. We can see here we may just want to match in this case on the registered addresses. So in this instance here, we're probably trying to now starting to identify a family unit, and there could be other people associated with that address as well. Allows a number of business scenarios to be addressed, whether you potentially want to be trying to sell multi-car policies, group discounts. It may identify you of which particular lifestyle stage an individual is at, and again, bear in mind this can also be brought together with all the other augmented information that we've discussed previously. So maybe adding in dates of birth to these as well, which may not be available. Outcome 7, this is a very simple scheme, but really just trying to explain what happens as your business changes. So your business, I'm sure, will be changing constantly. The rules will change, the data that you're going to receive will change. You're probably not necessarily in control of your data model, especially if you're purchasing other organizations or you're bringing new products to market quite quickly. And what this is really trying to do here is identifying how you need to be empowered to change any products yourself, to change match rules, to basically apply greater weightings to trust on different systems or reduce trust on certain systems, and therefore be in control of your own destiny. Again, this comes back to not necessarily want to be beholden to a lot of services requirement as soon as you want to bring on a new system or bring in some additional information. Because again, if you looked across all your customer systems, they will all have different data models in terms of how they store the customer's information, the volume of fields that they have. Probably key that you choose a product which has got a very flexible data model, which allows you therefore to adapt as your business changes and as you bring in more and more data from more and more solutions. I talked very briefly about trying to visualize the data. I'm going to give you an example here. If we look at the bubble there showing Josephine Porter, so in this instance Josephine is our customer, and it's probably trying to show that on the left hand side showing you she's got 2 policies, so it could drill down into the number of policies. It could show you what you should potentially a member of a credit union. That could also show you if we looked at the kind of 6 o'clock position there, it could say number of locations. This could say, well, she is associated with that's her home location. If we then drilled into that home location, we could see the other people who are also then associated with that location as well, policies which are associated with that location, and so on. So this allows you very much to visualize and navigate through the data, do your own discovery, and make decisions based upon that. Could be very useful from a claims processing perspective, from a risk reduction, and generally just knowing your customer. And this becomes possible by, again, joining all the dots together in your master data management solution. Bringing that information into place, trying to understand that customer engagement, therefore trying to map that golden customer record. It enables, not just if we take away from this screenshot, it enables a whole load of, if like, data warehousing opportunities, because we've now identified that this individual exists on multiple systems across the board. You can then try and work out, okay, well, how much does that individual pay what's the combined value of all the policies? When a person lapsed on system A, how likely is it therefore that they're going to become a lapsed customer on system B? Or if we've got them on system B and they're quite happy with the service that we're providing, how likely is it we can basically retain them on system A or turn them around? So all of that information, but being able to target things from a data warehousing perspective, enable you to do your overlays, do your cubes, do your reporting in a much more focused and correct example is really what we're trying to show on this screen here. And then finally, the final step there would be trying to enable that customer-facing process, trying to make it as seamless as we can. I talked previously about whether you're trying to move your customers to portals. So when they come onto the portal, are they seeing all the individual policies that they have across the disparate systems? If they're coming into your CRM solution, are you providing people in the customer-facing roles with all the information at that point of contact? So can they search across the gamut of the solutions that you have in place? And what this little screenshot here is showing how we would integrate into your CRM solution. This is an example of Microsoft Dynamics, but regardless of the fuzziness of the logic in there, so if you're looking for me, so if this person's looking for Gary Stalker, that's going to search across all the systems. It's going to give them back Gary with 1 R or 2 R's. It's going to give them back Stalker spelled correctly, spelled incorrectly, and so on, and try to provide that level of insight to them. But it's making all of that available at that point of contact. A slide here, I'm just finishing up now. You'll be delighted to know. Just to identify something here. A quote I really like, if you like, from Gartner, and in essence what it's trying to say here is that once IT and the business are going to working together with an MDM solution, I do believe that an awful lot of the blocks start to fall into place, especially for the business. They start to see what can be enabled, and the opportunities which therefore exist from that MDM solution being in place, how the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure which is there, enables that to happen, and therefore realizing that customer view as very much as a corporate asset. There are a number of additional resources lay your hands on to help wherever you are in your MDM process, whether that would be, we've certainly got analyst papers, we've got buyer's guides, things to consider, things to avoid, and even if it was potentially how to go about a proof of concept, if you wanted to move down that proof of concept route. I think that pretty much just covers me from there. I know there was probably, I think I'd seen some chat questions coming in, but I'll probably hand that back to you now, Dylan.
Fantastic, thank you, Gary. Yeah, we've had a few questions come in. We've got about 4 or 5 lined up actually. So I'll go through the first one, which came through in the first sort of 10 minutes. A challenge for us historically as a business when trying to create a single view of customer across the organisation is a diverse range of data formats across the company. This issue is made even more complex in M&A scenario, how would your MDM tool handle such a challenge?
Yeah, I mean that probably harks back to one of the things that I mentioned earlier. I probably mentioned it later on, after the question came in. So thanks for whoever put that one in. The collaborative data model is quite key, because in most cases we find that very rarely is are the technical assets within the organisation, whether it could be the IT department, in control of that data model, that business data model, and it is one of the biggest barriers that certainly we find the insurance companies face. There's a number of formats. The format of the data is important, whether that's like a cord related or whatever. But some people don't necessarily have to take that into account. But trying to choose a product which will allow you to map the various fields from your multiple different solutions into a single customer view, and allowing therefore that customer view to be flexible enough to change and not constrain you, because the challenges which are going to arise next year and the year afterwards, in terms of the changes that we've seen in the last 5 to 6 years, that pace of change is just going to continue. So it's almost virtually impossible to predict the data model that you're maybe going to need in a year's time or 2 years time, and what your data warehouse is going to need, and what reports and requirements the business are going to be demanding from you. So yeah, I would say trying to keep it as flexible and collaborative a data model as you possibly can.
Okay, fantastic. It's fairly well advertised that when looking at the cost of MDM projects, services expenditure outweighs the license cost of the software. Can you talk through what services requirements would be involved with multi-view?
Our services engagement is, I believe, reasonably straightforward. If you take off let's say there'll be some core upfront costs, so that's going to be a software installation, your project initiation, all scoping exercise. If we take those aside, in a typical MDM solution, regardless whether it's us or any other vendor, there's going to be an extract of data from the source system. That data needs to be loaded into the MDM solution, probably needs to be analyzed, cleansed. That's potentially where we would certainly bring in a data scientist to find out a lot more information about your data, but really to enable us to give us the best possible chance of matching individuals across your organization. So we've got that extract of data, getting it loaded, cleansed, then matching, creating the match rules, integration to handle changes that happen within the organization. So as people phone to tell you that their names have changed or their addresses have changed, how that therefore keeps it up to date. So the integration of the trickle feeds or the deltas to that data, and then testing it and migrating it. And if I can give you, to put a reasonably simplistic figure on that, we would normally work on the basis that a solution, a system coming into multi-view would probably equate to about 10 days worth of effort. So, and that again, I think it potentially helps you budget. It also means that if you're, a year or two down the line and you want to bring on a couple of other solutions, or you're trying to buy another company, pretty much how much time or effort is going to be involved in consuming that other system into your MDM solution. We're also very keen to try and make our customers as self-sufficient as possible. So what we tend to find is that maybe we'll do the first 3 or 4 in conjunction with the customer, because customers could come to us and say, well, I've got 25 sources of data here. I want to get them all in, but with the best will in the world, Gary, I don't necessarily want to pay you to do them all. So and on that basis, we would probably work to do the first 4 or 5, do the training, very much do the knowledge transfer. And once that foundation is in place, it's therefore much easier for those organizations to bring on those other sources of data on their own. But even as if you did want to come to us to bring on those out, then that gives you a feel for how many days may be involved, and so the 10 days would cover the extraction, the loading, if you like, analyzing, cleansing, matching, integration, testing, and migration into production.
Okay, fantastic. Next one is, we are focused on governing data consistently across the organisation. How does MDM fit into and support the broader information governance initiatives?
Data governance is probably quite key. I mean, I like to think on it as a number of points, whether that's the availability of data, the usability of it, the integrity of it, and the security of it. So if we see that as the data governance umbrella, I think what MDM is trying to do is make sure that if we take the availability, slant is making sure that the correct data is available to the correct people within the organization. What you tend to find is that that data is all there. If we went back to some of the examples, you do have, maybe mobile phone numbers and email addresses, and what you're trying to do is make that available to more people within the organization. So the data is there, it's just not readily available because it's often some siloed system. That leads itself onto the usability question for data governance, making sure the data is usable. That's potentially through the cleansing process as well, so that ensuring that all your telephone numbers are correctly matched and cleansed and usable. So regardless where they're coming from, you're getting them into the same format. The integrity of data is quite key. So identifying where there may be any mismatches. So if everything matches for this individual except their date of birth is potentially transposed, we've got a day and a month transposition, so one is a third of the second, the other is a second of the third. Trying to, what your MDM solution is doing is highlighting at that point that you do have a data integrity issue here. Your MDM solution potentially cannot tell you which one of those systems is correct. It may tell you that we trust system 1 more than we trust system 2, but however what it does do is it highlights there's a difference in the data, so that needs to be handled. And then finally, security, from that aspect of data governance, ensuring that the correct data is only available to the individual, so you can decide also how you want to share it, how it's going to be secured, and you may have information which you believe is sensitive, which you're pulling from one system, and you may therefore not want to share that with information on another system. So trying to be able to secure that data off in its own partition. However, you've still got a richer picture of the customer to make any decisions.
Thank you, Gary. We're going to record this, and it should be on Data Quality Pro in a couple of days. And obviously, if people have any questions, we'll give you details there of how you can connect to Gary via Data Quality Pro and get those answered for you. Hopefully, see you on a future webinar, Gary. Thanks. It's a great topic. Obviously, MDM covers so many different areas. Obviously, data quality, data governance, lots of different scope for discussion there. But thanks for coming on today, and as I said, we'll make sure everyone gets their questions answered by you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.